Welcome to another edition of 805 Sports Talk, and after months and months of waiting, we finally had some baseball and softball playoff action on Tuesday. Lorenzo, you were at Lompoc High. Highly anticipated game between the Braves and St. Joseph on the softball side, and it was a pitcher's duel, and St. Joseph came out on top. You had some good background to that story. First time the Knights had made the playoffs since 2011, and their first playoff victory since 2009. What did you take away from that game? Was it really a Skylar Johnson day? I know Lompoc also had some really good play defensively and through pitching. What did you take away from that game?
Culture change. Those are the two words that I can use to describe St. Joseph right now. I mean, John Welsh, who is an Orchid resident, bringing with him a bevy of experience and a bevy of success on the softball diamond, and right away he's bringing that to St. Joseph. And then you also have Skylar Johnson, who was at Aurora Grande last year, just lights out for all 7 innings. And Lompoc is one of the better power hitting teams in this region under Margie Ledgerwood. In fact, 2 occasions, Joe, I saw Maya Mendoza hit it deep, almost looked as if it could be either a double or a home run, but it was caught in the outfield. And there was a lot of frustration on Lompoc's side after those 2 hits. So just a defensive battle all the way through. And Lompoc countered with Lexi Porter, who's been a success story on her end, having overcome an ACL tear from a year ago, and being able to work her way into the top pitching lineup for the Braves. But, St. Joseph just been continuing to be this huge turnaround story, especially after what you said, 2011 was the last time that they made the playoffs, and then I found out it was actually almost 9 years ago when St. Joseph won a softball playoff game. So it's been a lot of culture change going on Foster Road.
Yeah, going into that game, did you have Lompoc as kind of the favorite? Do you think it was an upset? I know Lompoc definitely had some momentum, like a 5-game win streak, something like that. St. Joseph also had some momentum going into that game. Did it surprise you a bit that the St. Joseph Knights were able to shut out the Braves?
It did. Granted, I was at the Lompoc-St. Joseph regular season game that was won by the same Knights team, and Skylar Johnson was the pitcher. But, I felt like coming in, I gave the edge slightly to Lompoc just because of the experience they've had in being in the playoffs, being a perennial playoff team. Granted, Margie Ledgerwood did take a few years off, but she has been in this situation before with Lompoc High softball. I could kind of give the slight edge to the Braves coming into the game, but overall, it was a game that I anticipated it would be. Defensive battle, pitcher's duel. It would come down to ultimately one key hit, and it seems like that key hit came in the top of the first inning with Brianna Munoz's RBI.
Yeah, last week we saw Munoz have a big game against Slow. I think she had the home run that kind of lifted them to their first run, and then they ended up winning 2-0. So yeah, big week for Brianna Munoz, helping that team to their first playoff win in about 9 years. So St. Joseph, a big playoff win for the Knights over there, and we saw Elliot last Thursday, I think it was, that they clinched the playoff win with that win over Slow.
And they hadn't won a Pac-8 league game in 4 years.
Yeah.
And then under Welch, they turned it around this year, and they were believers. And I'd seen both of these teams play. I kind of figured it would be a close, low-scoring game. But when Skylar Johnson is on, and her defense is excellent behind her, she talks about she just throws the ball and lets the defense do its job, but when she gets 10 or 11 strikeouts, she makes it a lot easier for the defense. But I thought it was going to be a close game, and I would have given the edge to St. Joe because of their attitude and their momentum. That this is like the first year, and we saw it last year with San Ynez, that they're on a roll, and I think they've got that momentum going with them, and they edged. Lompoc was only 1-0, but they now know that they can win playoff games, and they beat a really good team, a team they're familiar with. So now they're going to be facing teams they know nothing about. It'll be a different story, but I think that confidence is going to carry them pretty far.
I'll add this. Ali Diaz was on those St. Joseph softball teams that didn't win a league game. It wasn't until her senior year when her team finally started winning some Pac-8 games. And she's been on varsity, St. Joseph's varsity softball team for all 4 years, including her freshman year. So 3 years it took or I say it took her until her senior year to finally experience not only a Pac-8 victory but also playoff wins. So, story of perseverance right there.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest turnaround stories that we've had so far this year. It's kind of almost like the Santa Maria baseball season last year, where not much was expected out of the Saints, and they turn around and have a championship season. I would be surprised if St. Joseph does advance that far in the playoffs, but it is definitely one of those bigger turnaround stories. You don't see that happen so quickly, going from winless league campaigns to a playoff win in just about one season. I think Skylar Johnson has a lot to do with that, but Ali Diaz has that experience, and she's kind of keyed that as well. So it's good to see the St. Joseph turnaround so quickly. And it was an interesting day at Lompoc High. While the Braves softball team was being shut out, the baseball team was being shut out as well in a wild card game against Buena, but the Braves came back. Kenny Kress was at that game and saw the Braves put up a 3-spot in the 7th inning to come out with a 3-2 victory. Now the Braves are on to the top seed in Division 4 at South Torrance later this week, and that's a Division 4 playoff game. I think that it's a tough division for a lot of those LPL teams to be in Division 4. I think we're used to LPL teams being in Division 5, but I wouldn't be surprised if Lompoc can at least challenge South Torrance. They got that pitching. Oscar Rojas was huge, helping the Braves kind of come back in that game, just allowing 2 runs against Buena, and Braden Deschriver had that game-winning hit. Caleb Ramirez, Jeffrey Ray had a big play there in the 7th inning. So we talked about that Lompoc experience earlier in the season. We see them kind of come through there in the 7th inning, scoring 3 runs. Were you surprised at all to see Lompoc with Brian Aguilar, first year at Lompoc, be in a tight spot, wild card game, down 2-0 in the 7th inning and come back to win? Did you kind of see them having that within themselves at some point this season?
Well,
coming back?
Kenny would be the best one to answer that, but I will say this about Brian Aguilar. You can tell he relates so well to those players, and I've seen it in the eyes of these players. I mean, yeah, Jim Allen had a lot of success at Lompoc, but I felt like toward the end he never really found a way to kind of get his guys engaged, whereas it's different with Aguilar now. Credit to Buena. I mean, Buena kept things close throughout the entire game. I'm sure Kenny would have said the same exact thing, but it took a really big hit for Lompoc to bail that team out. But it goes to show you that this team is now built for those kind of heroics. This team is built for those kind of situations now. So I mean, I'm expecting a close game down in South Torrance tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think they'll have Cortez ready to go in that game. I think Rojas pitched a complete game in the win over Buena, so now you got a senior like Ruben Cortez who threw a no-hitter recently. So yeah, maybe Lompoc is in position to surprise some people. And I think we know Lompoc South Torrance matchups have been pretty fun. I think Lompoc won one of their football championships, I think 2010, over South Torrance. So those two schools definitely have some history together. So maybe Lompoc can surprise them, the top seed in Division 4 on Thursday. So that'll be an interesting game. Moving back to softball, Santa Ynez, we've seen them come as runner-ups in Division 7 last season, moved all the way up to Division 5 playing a wild card game. I don't think a lot of people would have expected them to come out with a win at Arroyo, but they did, pretty much dominate that game 10-3. Armani Garcia, which she's done the last 2 years. Another huge performance, 3 RBIs for Armani Garcia, a 6-hit complete game as Santa Ynez won 10-3. Lauren Swing had a couple of RBIs for the Pirates in that one. Sabrina Harridge also had an RBI. So I was a little bit surprised to see Santa Ynez win that wild card game on the road. Did that result surprise any of you guys?
I think it did. I mean, being in a new division, but Armani's picking up where she left off during her freshman year.
Yeah.
So
they moved them up 2 divisions though. And this was a team that barely won a game before last season. So I was kind of surprised to see them. Denisha Gills and that coaching staff got their team ready to play with a big 10-3 wild card win.
One of their stars is Maggie Usher. And she isn't playing. She's out for the rest of the season as she recovers from a minor back injury. And I talked to her mother the other day, and she's going to be ready for the high school rodeo championships, and she'll be coming back to athletics for that, but she's not going to be able to play softball again this year. So they've had to overcome the loss of one of their stars. I mean, she's with Armani Garcia, the battery. I mean, they pitch and catch, and she calls a great game, and she can hit a ton. She bats like 4 in the order, so you lose a player like that. That's where I was thinking that's a big loss for this team. Armani Garcia has shown, as last year she was a pitcher of the year, and she's just a great softball player. But the other kids have stepped up, and they've pulled a girl in from right field to be the catcher, and she's doing a great job. So I guess after watching them last year, and I saw them play several games this year, that we shouldn't be surprised. If our Garcia is on, it's going to be tough for anybody to score off of her, and the team can hit.
And keep in mind, too, that Cindy Inez actually lost some of their key players from last year to transfer, but they still have plenty of talent coming back, particularly Usher and Armani Garcia. So, I mean, seems like that the Division 5 hasn't been that big of an adjustment for them.
Yeah, and you know, that might have been a little bit of a surprising result, but I think hands down the biggest surprising result was Napomo softball, 43-11 on the road, beating Notre Dame Academy.
Not a typo either.
Division 6, so the Titans put up 43 runs. Carly Camacho had 7 hits, 2 home runs in that game. The Titans had 5 home runs as a team. I know they were playing with no outfield fence, so all those home runs were the inside the park variety, but still, for Camacho alone to have 7 hits, 2 home runs. Elijah Rellin went 5 for 6, scored 5 times. So yeah, that was a big game for the Titans. I don't know if they can win a first-round game, but they definitely put up 43 runs in a playoff game is no easy feat, and that was called after 5 innings. So 43 runs in 5 innings is quite a feat. What did you think when you saw that one?
It was one of those scores where I not only double-checked, but I had to quadruple check to make sure that I was looking at a softball score, not a football score. But, I mean, credit to Napomo, and just seeing the bats come alive, especially at the right moment. Now the pressure's on to see if that continues on Thursday.
Yeah, that's kind of like a Coast Valley League score, regular season, that you would expect to see something like that, maybe 30 runs. I think we've seen VCA put up 30 runs in softball a couple times this year. For a playoff game, put up 43 runs. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that, and it'll probably be a while before we see
That's also a
like
Napomo Morro Bay football score as well. So
Kenny was talking to their coach, Matt Paradis, and he said to me, they got 6 touchdowns, and one of them had a 2-point conversion. I said, what? 43 runs. In any baseball or softball game, that just sounds unbelievable. I said to him, are you sure you got that right? And he said, no, 43. Amazing. And then it calls into question, how come Notre Dame Academy was so bad? They're a playoff team. You got some schools that we think should have made the playoffs and didn't get into the playoffs, and yet a team that made the playoffs gives up 43 runs in the first game out. So
Yes.
But they have their criteria, and they made it. And Napomo just rolled. It was amazing.
It's almost as if you may have been talking to Tony Dodge, but you had to be reminded that it's Matt Paradise on the phone.
Right.
I'm glad that was a road game and we didn't have to send a reporter, or I'm glad I didn't have to cover that, because 43 runs, that probably took a few hours. Some of those innings probably dragged on, so yeah, that would not be.
And your Twitter would have exploded.
Your scorebook,
my phone would have died.
When they bat around, you have to go to the next column, and then the next column. You wouldn't have had enough columns because of every inning that they batted around.
Yeah, and props to Matt Paradise, the coach over there. He calls in every time, so he did a good job with the scorebook, got all the stats together, and was able to provide us with all those details. So props to him, and props to the scorekeeper as well, definitely. A game that didn't have many runs at all was Cabrillo losing its wild card game to Alhambra 2-0. Conks are shut out. Their season's over. They were the 4th seed out of the LPL. John Osborne, another pretty solid season, but they definitely didn't end how they would have liked to get shut out. So the offense was struggling for the Conks. Are you surprised that their season's over so quickly?
John Osborne did kind of allude that this was going to be a younger group of Cabrillo team, and it was mainly a lot of guys who were from the JV ranks who were trying to get acclimated with the varsity speed, but they still managed to make a playoff run. Granted, it wasn't a deep playoff run, but they still placed itself in a position where they could still get the 4th and final LPL playoff seed. So it does say a lot about the character of this younger group of Cabrillo players, and it does give a good glimpse of the future that John Osborne has, not only with those players, but heading into the Channel League, heading officially next season.
Yeah, I think Cabrillo's going to be better next year.
I saw them, and I agree. Their pitching was ahead of their hitting this year, and it struggled. And you see, in the playoffs, they only gave up 2 runs, which is normally pretty good because you can win a game if you only give up 2 runs, but their hitting struggled. I saw them struggle just at the last games of the season against Lompoc, and it caught up with them here in the playoffs, so where good pitching is important, but you got to be able to hit some, and they just didn't get it done at the plate.
All right, and we got a couple teams who haven't started the playoffs yet on the baseball side. St. Joseph is at Sherman Oaks in Division 5, playing Sherman Oaks Buckley. Buckley's 12-9 in the season, so they don't have a ton of games. Cody Smith and the Knights, they've won 17 games so far this year. I'm guessing Zach Trevino is going to get the ball to start that game, so I think St. Joseph can win that game and move on to the next round. That's in Division 5. I think that's a good division for the Knights, and I think they could surprise some people. I wouldn't surprise them to make a little quarterfinal run. I would expect them to win that first round game this week. I know it's going to be tough, but Zach Trevino, Zach Morris have been really good. They did lose a little momentum after clinching a playoff berth on Tuesday, losing the next 2 games to Arroyo Grande, but they did wrap up that 4 seed out of the Pac-8. So, those 2 games probably don't mean a whole lot. They're probably just trying to fine-tune some things for the playoffs, but maybe they would like to have a little bit more momentum heading into the postseason, but Zach Trevino's been a stud all year. I'm sure he's going to get the ball against Buckley, and I think the Knights can win that one. And then Santa Ynez is taking on Segerstrom Thursday. That's Division 4 as well. Pirates, I think, are kind of overlooked somewhat this year. Cole Knightley's a stud. Dustin Gregg is a great 2-way player at catcher, a great hitter, and Welker, who's seemed like he's been there forever, is just a great kind of glue guy that you want in the middle of the infield. So I think Santa Ynez and St. Joseph are 2 teams that are playing first-round road games. I wouldn't be surprised to see both of them move on, wrapping things up on the baseball side. Santa Maria and Rigetti were left out of the playoffs. We knew it was a very, very long shot to see either of those teams make the playoffs as the 5th-place teams in their league. So the seasons are over for Santa Maria and Rigetti, and kind of a down year for Santa Maria Valley baseball. Softball, we just seen VCA and St. Joseph are both the 2 teams on softball and baseball to make the playoffs this year. So not one of those banner years for Santa Maria Valley baseball and softball. Rigetti was down softball-wise this year, baseball-wise. Santa Maria's softball team was actually improved somewhat this year, but not really close to making the playoffs. Santa Maria baseball team is got to feel like they left something there on the table with that tough loss to Cabrillo that I think really cost them. They were up 7-0 in the 7th inning, ended up losing, I think, 9-7 in 9 innings, and that really cost them a playoff berth and a possible playoff run this year, even though they were in Division 5. So Santa Maria's got to feel like what could have been this year with the talent that they had this season. So I was a little disappointed in that. Rigetti's kind of got to feel the same way. You have Jaden Libertus on your team, RJ Clayton on your team. You don't make the postseason. So I think both those teams are kind of in the same boat. They felt like they should have squeezed a little bit more out of their season this year. Moving on to the rodeo, Elliott. We're just a few weeks away. They're still, getting everything prepared. There's still some updates coming through. Can you make sure all our viewers are kind of ready and up to date on what's going on at the rodeo?
Yeah, well, of course, it's the 75th annual. It's Denim and Diamonds. It's a diamond anniversary, but Denim and Diamonds is their theme. There's all kinds of stuff that's been going on already. The Queen candidates have been out there raising money. The Bearderino guys have been growing their beards. They've had the Minetti Mini Rodeo qualifiers, and the lineup for the Mini Rodeo is all set. This Sunday, they've got 3 new events that are going to be contested. They're going to, for the first time ever, have a junior barrelman. We'll start with that. That's good for boys. I think it's 7 to 9 years old. And what they're going to do is they've got Justin Rumford coming back as the man in the can. Well, he's the guy, and of course, that is the clown, and he's also the barrel man for the bullfighting. What they're going to have is a junior barrel man, a young boy probably, that they're having a special can made for this youngster that will be just like Justin Rumford's, and he will assist Justin and be the junior man in the can for the mutton busting in all 5 rodeo performances, beginning with the Minetti Mini Rodeo on Thursday, May 31st. And then there's going to be a Miss Minetti Mini Rodeo and a Miss Elks Rodeo competition. Now, these are different from the Queen competitions. The queens are fundraisers. Whoever makes the most money, raises the most funds, becomes the queen, and that money is brought back to the Santa Maria Valley, to mostly youth organizations, or to sometimes help people with illnesses. But it mostly goes to the youth of the community, and they've raised about $12 million, and that doesn't change. This is something in addition to that. If you've been to rodeos, and I hope many of you have, they have a Miss California rodeo, and there's a Miss National rodeo competitions. So the Miss Elks Rodeo there's got to be horsemanship. It's sort of like a beauty pageant. You're going to have to do essays and be interviewed, because the winner is not only going to be wearing the Miss Elks Rodeo sash and ride. This horsemanship is a key part of this. Ride during each performance of the Elks Rodeo and the parade. They will then go on to represent the Santa Maria Elks Rodeo at the Miss California Rodeo contest, and if she could win that, would go on to represent the state of California in the national contest. And Miss Minetti Mini Rodeo will be the same thing, but it'll be young girls that are between the ages of 7 and 12, I think it is. And it's all happening this Sunday, May 20th, and you can still get registered to be a contestant. Just go to the elksrec.com website, and there's all the information you need there, or you can call the Elks Rec office and get an information packet. And then Tuesday, May 29th, Justin Rumford will be back as the clown. It'll be the 6th Clown College. It's the only school that I've ever had perfect attendance in, and I'll be back for my 6th year. I think we might be able to rope Jason Anderson into going along with me, although we've seen him wear the clown makeup before and fall out of the Coors Man in the Can. But he and I will be out there, and he'll be shooting video, and then Jason and I will be getting a lot of interviews the next day, so that on Thursday night, opening night, we will bring you a special live edition of 805 Sports Talk. And we'll be starting live at the rodeo grounds at 6 p.m. We'll have a lot of interviews, all the fun things. We'll have mini rodeo highlights, and we'll talk up the rodeo and what's going to be going on starting Thursday night, with the adult performances Thursday, Friday, Saturday evenings, and Sunday afternoon. So, and we've got a special section coming out that previews the whole thing. We've got a special 75th annual commemorative booklet that Braxton Carroll has been working like mad to get together. It's 48 pages of 75 years of memories of the Elks Rodeo. And one of the things that I will point out, when you get your booklet, page 9 is the very first story written about the Santa Maria Elks Rodeo 75 years ago, and it was in the Santa Maria Times. We've been covering it since 2 weeks before the first rodeo began, and we've been there every rodeo since, and we've got a special booklet to commemorate that, and it's from the very beginning up through last year. So it's a beautiful booklet, and it'll be a great addition to your library at home. So it's a special commemorative edition, so look forward to that. And we'll, of course, among other things, be keeping you up to date on all the Elks Rodeo events, and I'll be out there Sunday and let you know who the Junior Barrelman, Miss Mini Rodeo, and Miss Elks Rodeo are going to be.
6 years of perfect attendance on your end. They should give you a Lifetime Achievement Award at this one. So.
Yeah, I keep getting a bachelor's degree in clownology. By this point, I should at least get a master's.
Or a doctorate as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we're what, just about 2 weeks away from the rodeo?
15 days, yeah.
15 days away
days,
from the
yeah.
rodeo, but we're going to be spending a lot of time, Elliot, you're going to be spending a lot of time make sure everybody's ready for that big event.
Yeah, if you look at their website, elksrec.com, they have this, you know how when the CNN or ESPN has a big event coming up, they'll 10 days, 10 hours, 19 minutes, and 21 seconds. They got one of those, so if you want to know exactly how far it is, just check their website. But that was the easy thing to do. Click on that today. Oh, 15 days. Good, I don't have to do the math.
All right, so historic rodeos coming to town, but there's some history made in Lompoc Valley.
Yeah.
Last week, Leslie Hernandez, Cabrillo wrestler, first female wrestler to sign with a 4-year school out of Cabrillo. Connor Hayes also signed. So can you kind of fill us in on what's going on with Lompoc Valley wrestling?
Yeah, I want to start with Leslie Hernandez. I mean, I know she's a shy girl. She kind of is very soft-spoken when she does interviews, but this really is a transcending moment for Cabrillo High. Not just for girls wrestling, which is one of the fastest growing sports in the state, but just for the community in general. I mean, never before, according to Mike Wallace, the head coach, has there ever been a Cabrillo female wrestler accept a 4-year university opportunity to wrestle and continue her grappling career. She's the first to do that. Now, there has been past Cabrillo female wrestlers, but unfortunately none of them have really gone on to the college level. Some may have gone on to Cuesta, but they've never gone on to the 4-year university level that I know of and that Mike Wallace has known of. But Leslie Hernandez is going to Keene University, which is a Division II school in Bristol, Tennessee. So it really is one of those like really community-altering moments that Cabrillo's had. On the other end, Connor Hayes is going to be a part of history as well. Hayes is going to compete at Life Pacific College, an NAIA school located in San Dimas. They're starting a wrestling program for the first time in school history, and Hayes gets the honor of being a part of the very first group. So, I mean, just profound moments. Already two athletes getting ready to be in the history books at their respective schools. So it really is a cool moment to see, especially for a sport that actually is very popular around here, especially in the wintertime.
Yeah, we definitely see women's wrestling growing. Pioneer Valley's Gabby Rivas signed last week with Waldorf. We've seen Pioneer Valley wrestlers, especially on the women's side, definitely move on to the next level. So that's nothing new at Pioneer Valley, but it was cool to see Leslie Hernandez at Cabrillo make some history there. I know Kevin Elak at PV has made it pretty much a regular thing, sending wrestlers onto the 4-year level. So that was cool to see some girls move on to women's wrestling.
I'll add this about Hernandez.
Kevin Ilak's group girls that they've sent more girls wrestlers on to 4-year schools than any other sport in PV's history. It's not as old as Santa Maria, Rigetti, St. Joe's, or even Valley Christian, but nevertheless, in their history, they've sent more wrestlers on to 4-year schools than any other sport, and she was the 8th one.
I'll add this one more thing about Leslie Hernandez. She's actually the very first Cabrillo wrestler under Mike Wallace's watch to actually move on to the 4-year level. I mean, Wallace has only been there for 2 years, but he could finally say he has an athlete competing at a 4-year university.
And because it's an exploding sport, if you can send one, the college coaches start to take a look at it. I mean, that's why Pioneer Valley's been so successful, is the college coaches come here or get video from here, knowing full well that there's going to be 1 or 2 or more young women at Pioneer Valley. This can only help with Lompoc doing it as well. Rigetti has done it to bring more attention to the Central Coast and get more young women college scholarship offers. So, it's congratulations to Leslie Hernandez, but this will also be a benefit to a lot of young women here on the Central Coast.
And I can imagine Life Pacific College is going to hit Lompoc High a lot more, considering the fact that Connor gets to be a part of that first team.
Yeah, we definitely see that pipeline kind of get built, and then it kind of takes an effect. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of these wrestlers, Cabrillo girls wrestlers, Lompoc boys wrestlers, kind of move on to the next level with these guys kind of building that foundation a little bit. We're going to move on to track. 9 Lompoc Valley athletes are moving on to CIF Southern Section Finals. Kim Deming, Samantha Rodriguez, 2 really good pole vaulters. And I think we should take a moment to kind of acknowledge the Cabrillo pole vaulting. I think they're sending 4 pole vaulters to CIF Southern Section Finals. So Cabrillo's doing something right over there with their pole vaulting program. That's really cool. I don't know what it is, but maybe they're just really good at pole vaulting over there.
I'll tell you this, Joe. Like, I did track at Cabrillo, and pole vault was like the one sport people shied away from. They were afraid that the stick was going to break or they'll fall flat on their face. But it's a credit to Deming because she's a 4-year track athlete at Cabrillo, and now she's pursuing a potential state bid, and then she's going to be joined by Sam Rodriguez. But 4 in one sport alone. I mean, you normally think Cabrillo relay teams, Cabrillo sprinters, maybe somebody who does long distance like the 1600. I mean, Dwayne Solomon was more of a long distance runner. Granted, he also killed it in the shorter events, but I mean, this has to be a school record for Cabrillo to be able to send forward to the prelims for Division III.
Yeah, and I think Cabrillo's track and field program might be overlooked the last couple of years. You see Haley Batty has been tearing it up. She tore it up at Cabrillo, and now she's on to the state meet at Hancock, and they're sending 5 athletes to CIF finals. Ty Hernandez in the hurdles also advanced, and of course, I think we kind of know Lompoc might be a little more prestigious on the track and field side. They're sending Cassidy Cunningham. Asia Simmons is also going. So I think those programs are both really have a lot of history on the track and field side.
And keep in mind with Cassidy Cunningham, she's going to be doing track at an Ivy League school. So we'll be hearing a lot more about her for the next 4 years.
Yeah, she's done a great job in a number of sports over there at Lompoc, and I think she's got a bright future ahead of her. Obviously, moving to the D4 prelims from Saturday, Kenny Kress went over there. Joseph Dominguez, no surprise, double qualifier. He qualified in the 8 and the 1600. Sarah Perkins, top qualifier in the discus in Division 4. No surprise there. She's from Santa Ynez, qualified second in the shot put. Those guys have been dominating all season long. Emily Donahue, also double qualifier, qualified in the 16 and the 32. She wasn't sure if she's gonna race in the 1600 and the D4 finals, which are at El Camino College in Torrance this year. Usually seeing those at Cerritos College, but they're at El Camino on Saturday. Kenny Kress will be down there for that. We'll also have a preview on the Rigetti girls relay team. 4x1 qualified in Division 2. We know that's a tough division to qualify in. Rayanne Booker, part of that 4x100 relay team, but also qualified in the 100-meter dash, finishing 6th. Crazy season she's having as a freshman. She was hyped up, but
now,
she's lived up to it.
That picture back here that you can see, if you can take a look at it, it looks like it might be like stop action motion, because the same girl is running behind the same girl, but it's not. It's twins at Rigetti, Rayanne and Rianne Booker, and they both run like the wind. And here they are, right? And in 100, and Rayanne beat Rianne by a blink of an eye, but they're also 2 of the 4 very fast young women in that 4x100 with Anna Green and Kalani Cabanting.
Yep. St. Joseph's 4x1 team also advanced at Division 4. So those guys have been having a solid season, and they didn't even have one of their best runs, at the prelims. So they can do better, and I wouldn't be surprised if they, have a really good time, possibly win in their division. Can't forget Devin Diaz at Napomo. He qualified in the 3200. I don't know how those guys run those 3200s, but by the way, that's tough. And Emily Donahue running the 16
you have to have very
and 32.
powerful lungs.
That's why Emily has said that she's got to decide, because running the 16 and the 32 takes a lot out of you. That's like a 1 mile and a 2 mile, and there's only a little bit of time in between them. It's not like you got a day to recover, like at the Olympics where they'll space those things out. So she's right now got to consider, does she want to run those 2 races in one day or just give it all? And she loves the distance races. We talked about sprinting and things. She says, nah, she likes to go long distance, and she may just opt to run the 32.
Yeah, it's incredible what those guys do throughout the season, running these distance races, and then here we are at the end of the season, they still got to do it, and it really comes, this is a time where they really got to put up those quick times, so it's really impressive what they've done. So good luck to everybody from the area that's going to be at the CIF Southern Section Finals on Saturday. We'll have full coverage from that. Also got to give a shout out to the Napomo boys swim team winning a Division III championship. They came up just short last year, but last week on Friday, they won the Division III championship, so congrats to them. We'll also have coverage from Santa Ynez boys tennis team in the semifinals on Wednesday. We'll see if they can move to the championship round, which will be played Friday. So we got some teams making some deep runs, swimming, tennis, and then we got some individuals on the track side making
Cody
deep runs
King's
as well.
another one who will call in and report some scores from Napomo, so we have to give a shout out to Mr. King as well.
Yeah, congrats to him, doing a great job over there. Just coming up short last year and then coming through almost a dominant win in Division III, and that's a tough division to win a championship in for a school like Napomo as they get ready to move on to the Central Section next season. So congrats to them, and we already got a CIF championship on our belts on the Central Coast, which is cool to see. So that's all we got for this week's show, but we'll have a lot of playoff coverage for the rest of this week, so stay tuned for that. A lot of rodeo coverage, and we'll see you guys next week.